Here is the KLR. I wanted to do a quick video just doing a little bit of an overview of this really strange bike, because this is a 2017 and it's carbureted. It's kind of rare. I mean, Kawasaki really kept the most basic motorcycle around, and this is it. This is, you know, even the 2008, 2009, 2010 Ninja 250s were still carbureted. Only in the 300 is that they made them fuel injected. But that's something I admire about the klr650. As you know, in 2019 they discontinued it, and everybody thought that it was going to be gone forever. And if it was going to come back, I thought that the Versys engine would be stuffed in the klr650. It would be fuel injected, but it wasn't. You know, the new klr650 is very much like this one. Kawasaki did the bare minimum to get the new klr650 to meet normal emission specs, but it's still the old KLR. It still has the same energy that this one has. So this is one of the last carbureted klr650s, and I think a lot of the purists still prefer the carb version. You know, you might say, oh, why would anybody go with the carb version over the fuel injection? I mean, for me, I would rather have fuel injection. I'm not going to lie, I'm a fan of fuel injection because, you know, I keep bikes outside sometimes, I go on tours, but if something happens to the fuel injection, you are going to be stranded. Now, the things, chances are of it happening are kind of remote, but with the carburetor, even if you're out in South America somewhere in some very hidden part, most people know how to work on carbs, and it's something it's a very simple system. But the klr650, you do have to appreciate the most basic form of adventure bike. And people kind of forget it. With all of these adventure bikes coming up and around, like Super Tenrays, GS's, you know, even the Tenray 700 is a very basic bike, but compared to this, it is complex. Let's look around because I want to show you guys a little bit about this. So the front wheel is a big advantage over the Tenray and the V-Strom. Often people compare this to the V-Strom, and I had the V-Strom and I love the V-Strom. This is a better dirt bike. This is a better dual sport because a lot of it is the 21-inch front wheel. 21 inches means that you can go over obstacles much better. There's better options for tires. And when you have a 21-inch front wheel, it's a lot more stable as well. But, I mean, just look at this. The upgrade in the new KLR is that they made this rotor a little bit bigger. One of the issues with this is that it sags down when you hit that front brake quite a bit. Even in my first klr650, I had a 1999, same bike. This is the new revamped klr650, of course. But it just dove in quite a bit when you hit the front brake. There's these fork braces and stuff you can get for the klr650, and I think a lot of people do use them. This one does not have a fork brace, and you do have these really nice gaiters, and they're very thick. They're not like the flimsy ones that you get from China, and you do have the upgraded rotor. The new ones coming out have much bigger rotors, just a little bit bigger, I guess. But the front end has been completely redesigned, and it looks really good. I do like how it looks. I do have some complaints, as you'll hear. The turn signals, they're these weird stalks, and they're kind of loose. I'm going to have to say these are things that we have to constantly be doing. But KLR graphics looks good. Look at this, antique. That's a petcock. You don't see that a lot. So I'm already dirtying it up. It's not perfect. You know, the CTX I traded in was in perfect shape. This one's not perfect, but you know, that's the appeal of the KLR. Nobody really cares if it's in a little bit dirty. It actually looks better dirty. And you have these massive foot pegs. I mean, look at that. They're Tusk off-road pegs, so they are aftermarket. The transmission is a 5-speed chain-driven transmission. And one thing I'll tell you about the transmission from riding it, it's very vague. It goes into gear. It doesn't seem like it goes into gear. It's just a very vague transmission. Most bikes, it's a very kind of crisp shift. That way you know you're first, second, third, whatever. This one's so vague. Oftentimes you do not know when you're in second, third. You can say it's smooth, but I prefer a little bit of a notch when you're shifting. Look at that nice neon green shock. I believe it might be an aftermarket. I'm not quite sure. There's quite a few goodies on this bike. This is a chain-driven. Sprockets look good. And look at this massive kickstand. That's a really big kickstand. And of course, this one does have a center stand, which is perfect. Battery is over here where it should be. This one comes with this Pelican case. This one has an FMF exhaust. That sounds really good. You know, you do need a good exhaust for these thumpers, because thumpers, they sound great. I believe they sound best from any motorcycle, including V-twins. They sound amazing. This one doesn't sound as good as the klr650R, but it's also because this one doesn't have as much power. And it's a kind of a tame power band, so you don't get a klr650 to go hot rodding. It's not a fast bike, but it's a fun bike because of its simplicity. Your oil filler, you have your oil sight glass, which is good to have, very accessible. You have oil filters here. It doesn't even use the cartridge style. It's they should have made it with the other one. These are the things I would want in the new one, like the cartridge style would be nice. You have your starter over there, so easily to access. I guess you would have to remove the exhaust to get to it, but that's fine. Carburetor, and that's your idle adjustment right here. Very easy to get. It's a CVK carb, and the tires are knobby, so tires always look good when they're knobbies on these bikes. Radiators over here. So this is a water liquid cooled bike. Very good suspension for what it is. It's kind of on the softer side, but I think that's good. You do have this protecting the brake master cylinder reservoir. The gallons are 6 gallons on this, and it gets about 50 miles to the gallon, so it does take you for quite some distance. The radiator, you don't have to remove anything to access. It's right here. And this has been broken at one point. The crossbars, I'm going to have to move them a little bit because my hands are kind of positioned down, and I don't like that. I like to be a little bit more like this. Very simple control. So you have your kill switch, your starter. Over here you have heated grips, which is good. High beams, turn signals, horn. Then you have your choke here, and then you have your key. Now the dash, very simple and a little bit disappointing because I was hoping on having a fuel gauge. And I don't know why Kawasaki doesn't have a full fuel gauge in a 2017, but it goes back to that whole simplicity. Why do you need a fuel gauge? You have your trip. When you get to 200, you know that you should probably fill up. So that's probably their mentality. But a fuel gauge is always good to have. Now, when it comes to the seat, I had a V-Strom 650, and it is not as comfortable as a V-Strom 650. The V-Strom 650 was longer and wider. So when you have a longer and wider seat, that means that you can take passengers. Of course, the whole V-Strom was more comfortable. But this one's got a different appeal. It's much better off-road than the V-Strom 650. You do have nice handguards. Everything about it is simple, but I'm going to go ahead and start it up so you can hear it. I just want to do a quick video. It just snowed, so there's like dirt and salt everywhere, so I don't think I'm going to take it for a spin. but I just wanted to show you what it looks like with the bike running. So for this, you have to pull the choke and then turn the key. And there it goes. These are very cold-blooded, but very good sounding bike. Carburetor, man. I cannot believe that it's a carbureted bike from 2017. Now I turned off the choke. Now I do like to run the bikes quite a bit before you start cranking them. I really hate the videos of guys that start the bikes and they just start automatically revving up the bike. I just feel bad for the bike. You definitely don't want to be revving bikes that have not had a good chance to warm up and then just start revving them like crazy, redlining them. I just find it ridiculous. But I'm really liking this bike. I've always been a fan, and I think the first klr650 I had, I think I was at a time I wanted to do more horsepower, so I sold it pretty quickly. I got it cheap, sold it, I think even cheaper. But the klr650, apparently, it's here to stay. Oh, my high beams are not working. Yeah, the klr650 is definitely here to stay with Kawasaki's very tricky and very interesting way of marketing. You know, they didn't announce that they were developing a new klr650. They just simply went, we are discontinuing the klr650. And then the internet started to go bonkers. How can they do that? How can they do this? But now that I look back at it, I just realized that that was very good marketing by Kawasaki. Let me go ahead and that's all you get for today. But yeah, that was a good marketing strategy by Kawasaki. It was completely intentional. And at the time I heard the announcement of the klr650 being discontinued, I thought that, yeah, it's about time, you know, maybe sales numbers are down. Everybody's getting into the Teneres, the GSs. Maybe it's time to let go of this antique, but there is a demand for very simple, rugged bikes, and you just cannot go wrong with this Kawasaki klr650, even in 2021. It's an incredibly good bike, and it not just a good bike, it's an incredibly good bargain, even if you buy a new. Brand new, I think it's like $6,500. The Adventure klr650, the new one, is like $7,000. The top of the line with ABS and fuel injection, $7,000. Now imagine you are considering getting the Yamaha Tenere 700, and that's a $10,000 bike because you think you're going to ride to Alaska. But then again, why don't you just get this for $7,000, the new one, and you have $3,000–$4,000 to play with? That's something that people should consider, and I think people need to kind of relearn about the klr650. Even an old one, you can get it and just go around the world. That's the beauty of this bike. It's just dead simple. Kind of stuck here. The cops won't bother me.